Hello. Okay, we're live. Here we go. Today I'm going to explore AI, and the reason why I want to do it today is because GitHub Copilot in the agent mode was released relatively recently, right? I think it's not even enabled for all users yet. It's in some kind of preview, I think. Anyways, GitHub Copilot agent mode, and the moment I tried it, I was very, very impressed. It's absolutely amazing, right? So I thought, hey, why don't I experiment with it live more than I already did? So today we're going to see what we can do. If you want in your comments to send some instructions, do this, do that, please do. Go ahead. And we'll see. Now I will take a simpler, actually two important things there. First, I'm focused on Kubernetes and stuff, more on operations than development itself. So we're going to see how AI helps in that area primarily, but we can do code as well. That's all fine. And the second thing that I want to say is that I'm going to start in easy mode, right? I think that working with AI on existing projects is much more complicated, simply because in those cases there are additional requirements, right? It needs to follow your guidelines of how to format the code. It needs to use the tools that were already defined in that project and so on and so forth. So I'm making it easy for AI today. New project, and we'll see how far we are going to get. Before we continue, I see that John became a member of the channel. Thanks a ton, John. I really, really, really appreciate it. That's absolutely awesome. Brett is here. Brett, come to the stream. I sent you email with the link. If you don't have anything better to do, just come in and I'll put you in. It would be fun to do this together if you're up for it. And then we have Hi from Netherlands. Hey, Martin. Do you place bets? Yeah, why not? Kind of go for it. Okay. And I see that Brett does not read emails often. I noticed that. Anyways. Come, Brett. So let's give it a go. Let's share my screen. Here is my screen. I'm in the root directory where I keep code, and I'm going to create a new directory, Copilot agent demo. We're going to go there. And let's see what should we do first. Let's say that this directory should be a Git repository, right? So let's actually know. First things first, Visual Studio Code. Let's open it and see what we'll get. Wrong one. There we go. There is the Visual Studio Code. Let's make it slightly bigger. Cool. There is this new icon over there. That's Copilot, right? And the important thing here is that in the past you had, I don't know if you can see this, it's very small letters, ask or edit, and the new thing is agent. That's the awesome thing. Because basically now we're not going to have AI that is suggesting what we might want to do, but instead doing stuff. And here's my terminal. I'm going to keep it, let's see, why is this not working? Here we go. Let's put it down. No, let's move it. I like to have it on the side. Oh shoot, I don't see a thing. Here we go. Okay, so code editor on one side, terminal in the middle, and Copilot agent, right? So can you convert that directory into a GitHub repo? Let's see how good it will do that. I'm using Claude, which is probably the best model we can have. And let's see where we'll get, right? Okay, there we go. See, it's already doing silly things. Kind of, it wants to go to the directory. I'm already in it, but that's fine. It will initialize Git. There we go, working. Very cool. Initialize Git directory. You will see later that actually it has a much better context of what's going on. it created a file, which is fine, README. Everybody should have README. And let's see. It's a bit slowish today. See? Silly. Why would it always go to the same directory if it's already there? Anyways, it will add and commit. That's fine. Now I want to see whether it will figure out how to actually create the repo itself, right? So far it's just initialized Git. And what I wanted to do really is to create a repo. And then it gives me suggestion, right? Okay, let's fix that. It's a bit silly of it. You can use GHCLI to create a repo. Let's see whether it will figure it out. By the way, I noticed that sometimes it just freaks out and with scrolling, and you need to move it around for it to understand it. Okay. There we go. GH version. Okay. This is nice. It validates first that it can do something before doing something. That's pretty cool. Still a bit slow, but that's fine. It's faster than most humans anyway. Keeps thinking that it should go enter the directory every single time, but correctly it figured out the command. Cool, right? It's going to create a repository, and soon it will probably suggest that we should push changes, or maybe we'll do that later. We'll see. Okay, and yeah, it's adding the remote information about the remote repository. It could have done that in the same GH command, unless, or maybe it already did it, but nevertheless, there we go, right? Okay, that was successful. Now let's do some work. Okay, Miyogi, did you configure GitHub MCP server? Yes, I did. And from Nubu, I cannot pronounce it, Nubuo, I think the silly thing is a safeguard to get it back into the original place in case you do other commands in the terminal. Yeah, it's not. It depends really. That's one of the problems with AI. It does things differently. The same operation might perform differently depending on who knows what criteria. I used it already quite a lot in past weeks, and this is the first time it actually insists on going over and over and over again to the same directory. It wasn't doing before, so I'm not sure. I don't think that it's a safety thing that is embedded in it, unless it's some latest update or iteration or something like that. Anyways, create a no, I need to click on a chat box. There we go. Create a Kubernetes cluster, right? Now, this is where I suppose that it will start getting a bit confused. You'll see soon why. It will not find, you know what? Minikube. No. Let's not use Minikube. I don't like Minikube. I mean, actually, it's fine. I prefer using kind. Now this comes apart. I want to figure out whether it will figure it out somehow. Oh, Brett is here. Look at that. Brett!
Yo,
hey, long time no see. It's been almost 2 weeks since we saw each other.
We've now officially almost seen each other more in virtual than we have in real. Like, we've been doing conferences for a decade together. So
exactly.
Glad to be here.
Hey, thank you for being here. Feel free to turn in, say something, whatever. Just, this is unscripted, so let's see what will happen. Now, I don't have kind, which might be strange since I work with Kubernetes a lot. And I don't have kind because I tend to use DevBox. So let's see whether it will figure out that it can do the same thing. I use DevOps to bring in tools I need to work on a project. Now, what I'm curious is whether it will figure out that that is in the context of me wanting to create a cluster. So I expect it to not only initialize DevOps.json, but also add kind over there, right? Because that's what I would need to work on a cluster. By the way, if anybody has any suggestions, just go ahead in the comments. You know what to do. There we go. Now, the nice thing is that it keeps updated README all the time with everything I'm doing, which is pretty cool. But on the other hand, some cases very silly because, for example, in this specific case, it says, hey, setting up your environment, do git clone. I'm definitely not going to do git clone. No, actually git clone, sorry. I thought that it was suggesting to create a direct git repository every time. So this is pretty cool, right? It documents everything so that anybody else working on this project can follow along. Let's see whether it created DevOps.json. There we go. It did create DevOps.json and it had packages kubernetes.kind. Now I'm pretty sure that that's not correct, but let's see. Can you create a cluster now using kind from DevBox? And there is a comment here while it is trying. It is an alternative to dev containers. Not really. It's more like alternative to Brew in a way, or Chocolati, or whatever you're using to install stuff, except that it's ephemeral. So I have DevOps.json in every single project, and then each project has specific versions. It could be even the same tools, right? But specific tools, specific versions of the tools for a project, but not running in container, simply running inside my laptop while still being somehow ephemeral. So it is more or less competitor, but very different still. So it created, it added a script section saying create cluster, kind create cluster, etc., 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 which is cool. It tells me, hey, do you want to run this? And I'm going to say no. I want you to enter the box shell instead, and then create a cluster. Now, one thing, I don't know how you see it, Brett. I still feel that AI is very much more useful to experienced people than inexperienced, right? If you don't know what you're doing, you get easily lost in suggestions that sometimes make sense, sometimes that don't.
Yeah, it's a great conversation. Like, I have yet to watch like a junior do this, like vibe code or whatever you want to call it, that a junior would do. I also don't see a lot of senior programmers, like, or if you even want to call us that. I'm just senior. I'm not sure I'd call myself a senior programmer. But like, it's such not the same mental flow, and I find that this is going to take a lot of work. At least for me, I feel like it's taken me a lot of time to get better at this, and I always want to blame the AI for being dumb, which probably is the AI. But
yeah,
I get into a rabbit hole so many times with this that I can't get myself out of, and I have to like start over because it's just so broken, and it's like trying to do things on my system that it shouldn't. But yeah, precisely.
But then, you know, the part that I'm missing is some kind of learning experience. If
right.
You know, let's say that I hired an intern, right? An intern doesn't know how to do much, right? But then you micromanage, you spend a tremendous amount of time explaining things because you're building that person to become more proficient.
Yeah.
But I don't think that AIs do that today. They don't learn from. I'm pretty sure that if I start a new session, it will forget about my requirement to use DevBox, right?
Yeah. I mean, what? So can you back up real quick? So agent mode, I heard it was coming. Is it? You said it's only enabled for certain people that have Copilot, or is it like?
Yeah, so you need to have Copilot, and I think, but I'm not 100% sure that it is in some kind of preview mode. I, for example, had to go to settings, and I already forgot what I did, but I had to go to settings and to enable it specifically, right? At some moment, it will be there available to everybody by default. But right now, if you don't see agent here, if you see only ask and edit, then you need to go to settings and just enable it.
Okay.
At least that was my case.
Yeah, I'm gonna go look at that. I have not used VS Code in a few weeks. I've been.
What did you use? Cursor?
Well, I've been playing with NeoVim again this year, like sort of leaning into the shell. And some of it's AI tooling that's out there. There's a Copilot thing that's kind of just code completion or line completion, and then there's a couple other things. And so I've like taken a nap to VS Code for a hot minute, and I feel like everything's changed. Anyway,
I must admit that I tried NeoVim. I had like 4 or 5 attempts. Kind of, I'm going to try this thing. Everybody says it's amazing, and I think I have probably low tolerance for pain or something like that. It seemed overly complicated to set it up.
It is like many open source things. It's a matter of will. You have to be very determined that you're going to get through all of the. I mean, I have a bunch of notes I have to have on screen. For certain macros that I've created that I forget that because I don't. I mean, it turns out as a content creator, you don't program all day, unless that's exactly what your content is live streaming programming, and I don't do that. So I'm usually spending my time in YAML and Markdown and Docker files and stuff like that. So I don't do a terrible amount of programming.
That's programming. No, okay. So here's my definition. Programming is when you create something that can be interpreted by machines.
Okay.
That's my definition of programming.
I like that
definition. Or code, huh?
I mean, technically, in the early 90s, when I was using and managing a fleet of machines that were doing WordPress for DOS, they had not WordPress. Sorry, what was it? It wasn't called WordPress. What was it? It was before Word. There was an old program before Microsoft Word. Anyway, it's not the blog, but it was. You had to learn the command codes for certain things like page breaks and stuff like that. So it was all you were doing was you were writing documents that would probably be printed on a dot matrix printer, but you felt like you were doing a little bit of coding because we didn't have the GUI yet. No, it wasn't WordPad. It was before WordPad, before Windows, before we had Windows. WordPerfect.
Gladys.
WordPerfect.
Ah.
My brain just suddenly worked again. WordPerfect. Anyway, it was a DOS-based editor. It was blue typically. I think you might be able to change it, but it was blue background, and you had to learn command codes and the escape sequences and stuff like that for your. Anyway, so I always looked at that as like a layman person's programming, just like we all had the little calculators back in the old days, and we would program the calculators to do fun little games and Tetris and Snake and stuff like that. Anyway, so I'm looking for the setting to enable this. I'm so behind you. Copilot.
You're not behind me at all. While we were talking, I was just following along, and it's freaking out completely. I don't know if anybody followed what I'm doing on a screen. It's completely confused what to do with it, right? It tried everything that it shouldn't tried. It's tried, and there we go. It finally now, after I don't know how many attempts, changed the packages to whatever it had before to kind latest. I want to use a specific latest version. I hate when anybody AI should have some kind of rules like don't use latest. That's just silly. You should be fired if you're a human.
Oh man, it when it comes to versions, it is a hot mess. Like it is a dumpster fire. Have you tried any of the other ones like Cursor or Windsurf and Like,
Yes,
is this
so-
your first experience with an agentic
No,
workflow?
no. With agentic, yeah, I used Cursor. So I switched from Copilot to Cursor because it was so much better. But now that Copilot got agent mode, I'm switching back to Copilot.
And you're using 3.7 Sonnet. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although there's 3.7 Sonnet thinking. I don't know.
Create a cluster. Let's see whether it will figure it out now.
Oh yeah, so you have agent. So I don't have the agent option drop down in your little chat box.
Yes, so you need to enable it in settings.
Yeah.
But don't ask me how I did it and I forgot. You can ask AI.
Yeah. How do I enable? I'm gonna ask ChatGPT.
You see, what is happening right now is what is to me so frustrating with AIs is that they don't remember. Actually, they don't remember what was told. Right? It tries again to run DevOps, run create cluster, and it told it that I want it to run from a shell. Do it from DevOps shell. By the way, I don't know if you see the screen, Brett, but you got the instructions how to do it from Nubuo.
Chat agent enabled. Okay. Thanks, Nabuo. Regular on my live streams as well. It's like I didn't realize this. We share audiences. It's awesome.
Me neither.
I mean, I watch your stuff, so it makes sense that my people would watch your people's stuff.
Yeah. Success. Now, if this wouldn't be live stream, I think that I would already be very disappointed, but I don't want to swear in public right now. Anyways, it figured out after I told it to use the shell, and now it tries to create a cluster, and this should hopefully work. What should I do next? Any suggestions? I mean, I have an idea of something I'm working on, but if anybody has a suggestion, we can go with that instead. If not, then I'll continue freaking it out. So far, I'm winning, by the way.
Yeah, the last time, this was like 3 weeks ago before KubeCon, but maybe 4 weeks ago now. The last time I used the agent mode where I said, figure it out and let me know when you're done. It got to the point where it was trying to sudo-rm parts of my machine because it couldn't build, and it couldn't figure out why it couldn't build. So be careful out there, people. Don't give your AIs too much permission, too much access.
Yeah, in case of Copilot, at least in agent mode, doesn't do anything without you confirming first that that's okay, which is fine. I don't know if you played with Claude. That's a CLI-like agentic AI, which can run in a don't ask me questions mode. But I dare to use it only for half a minute. That's how much I trust it to do anything. I mean, if it cannot do things when you instruct it and guide it and stuff like that, I'm not sure that anybody should try to just run it, right?
Yeah.
Can you install ACK in that cluster? ACK, for those of you not familiar with, that's AWS. Oh, what does it stand for? Controller for Kubernetes. Basically, it allows you to install CRDs and controllers so that you can manage your AWS resources from a cluster. So let's see whether it will do that. That's kind of more complex operation than creating a cluster, but still relatively straightforward. There is actually, it's not straightforward. Nothing is straightforward with AWS. So let's see whether it will be able to do that.
Turns out my issue was I needed to restart VS Code.
There you go.
When in doubt, reboot.
Now, okay, so let's place bets. Do you think it will figure out that I'm using DevOps JSON and that's why it doesn't have AWS CLI? It does. Sorry, not AWS CLI, Helm. It does. It added Helm to DevOps JSON. And this is so frustrating. First of all, I told you to use specific latest versions of packages. Now, what is, I don't know if you heard those, I mean, you must have heard in the news and in the internet, Brett, how companies are all around now firing people because they're being able to do what they're doing with people now with AI.
Yeah.
And I cannot, I mean, unless those companies have something that is not available to the public, I cannot imagine how that is actually really working. Oh,
I feel like my friends are like half my friends are like, man, it's crap. I'm not going to bother. Like, I'll wait 5 years or whatever. And then the other half are like, this is amazing. I can't believe this. I'm craving more. I'm constantly trying to figure out new ways to do all this stuff. MCP, AI agents, blah 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 blah. And like, I don't have a strong enough opinion yet because I have two sides coming at me that are completely opposite. And most of my own experiences are just dumpster fires. Like, I think you and I'm not even sure if we're the right people for AI workflows yet, because I don't know about you, but the most of the errors I have from the AI itself, most of the things it gets wrong are because it's looking at old information. And I'm always dealing with stuff that's new in the last few years or major new versions or whatever. And it never seems to know anything over, because of the time it was trained or whatever.
Let me show you something really cool related to that. But before that, I just realized that I forgot that I have a sponsor and I should probably mention them. So here we go. Posthog. I have a screen over here. Let me put it in. There we go. Right. Posthog is the sponsor of this video. And where is it? Wrong screen. Why am I doing that? What the heck is going on? There we go. Posthog. So Posthog is the sponsor of this video. If you want to try it out, go to posthog.com/Victor. That's why they know that you're coming from this stream and stuff like that. They're going to track every movement you make. So choose wisely. Anyway, it's a platform to analyze, test, and observe and deploy features. Basically, it allows you to understand what the users of your application are doing, analyze those things through different metrics, and figure out what to do with your users and how you can track them instead of them tracking you, and make better decisions in the future. A bunch of companies are already using it. It's cool. A lot of things over there. Try it out. Posthog, thank you so much for sponsoring the stream. And now we can go back to where we were. And I remember that I told... Huh?
I love their hedgehogs.
There we go. There's my... No, I don't want my terminal. I want my VS Code. There we go. Now, you said that it's not up to date, right? If I remember correctly, the last thing you said.
Right. Yeah. Like, for example, I was trying to do I'm learning Talos Linux this week, and I was trying to get some commands, and it's like giving me either completely wrong commands or way old commands from old versions. And I mean, we all have experienced probably like the versions that it puts in a Docker file are old, or even Docker's own Gordon AI, at least until recently, kept recommending old compose files that were like 5 years old. And so I'm not sure that we've cracked the nut of the AI's understanding the difference between old and new knowledge, and how, like, you and we learn something new and it replaces the old, even though we're aware of that the old thing used to exist. But it seems to me like AI keeps them at the same level of prominence. So it's like you might use Nginx 1.10 or you might use 1.25. Who knows? Anyway.
Exactly. And basically, what we're doing is faster. Imagine a very junior developer that is very, very, very fast at going to Stack Overflow and copying and pasting the first result.
Yeah.
Isn't that more or less?
And Nubuo's like, we just need to let go of the latest thing. That's not going to happen. So I have seen a post where someone theorized that if we vibe coded everything, that pretty soon, like, old versions of Java would be the most popular thing on the internet that's written that for code. Like, we wouldn't even use new stuff anymore, because if the argument is new versions are easier to use for humans, well, the AI doesn't care about that, and it doesn't need, because it's not a human, so it's just going to use all the old versions and do everything the hard way. And it was an interesting theory. I don't know how practical it is, but at some point a human has to be able to understand, like, they have to approve this. They have to, like, I don't know where all this is going, and I keep hoping that eventually we'll figure out, maybe it's the agent approach, where one AI is yelling at the other AI to get it right, and, like, saying, no, you're wrong, you're failing my test, I wrote test, you failed. Like, maybe that's the approach. They all argue until we get a better result, but I don't know how that happens.
Very often, testing wise, and even today in a few examples, Copilot would actually validate something after doing it, right? It was trying to, when it created a cluster, it tried to validate it. Now, how good or bad it was doing it, that's a separate discussion, right? But again, going about outdated, if you look at what I brought it to do right now, that basically,
go read the docs.
It is capable to go and read the documentation, right? And you can see actually, fetch untrusted, blah, blah, blah. Yes, continue. And now it is going and hopefully figuring out the latest information about SEK in this case.
All right.
Let's see.
You don't have to. You just have to give it links. If you give it links, it automatically reads them.
Yes. Now there is stupid AI. Sorry for interrupting. I need to constantly micromanage. You are already.
You got to keep your employees in line, sir. Keep them.
Yeah.
Keep them working. We don't want them sitting on their laurels.
But hopefully it figured it out, and now it is going again through the steps that it already did. That's the problem. It forgets what it did before, which is probably the biggest problem. Because how can you imagine having a person, an intern, that every hour its brain resets, and you need to explain again whatever you explained before. Now it asks me to exit the shell so that it can enter the shell. Now, I would really like to meet those acquaintances of yours, Brett, that claim that this is life-changing.
Oh yeah, Well, they're people. I think all of them are people that are writing code for themselves. So they're not in a team, and it's not a profitable, like, company that they have someone to answer to. But I also think there tend to be the people that are always trying to push the envelope anyway, and they're tinkerers. Anyway.
Okay.
I'll see some of them next week. Actually, I'm going to a little local conference for small tech business owners. And I'll see some of them next week, so maybe I'll have some more stories. I'm certainly going to have some more stories. So next time we meet doing this, hopefully I'll have some interesting takes on people trying to use this stuff every day.
I still don't believe that this is so life-changing. I mean, if it could be life-changing for people who are building demos and kind of, if you go to YouTube
Right.
and search for anything AI, it would be, hey, I can create a ping pong game. That's amazing. I can create a web page from scratch, and that's absolutely amazing, but that's not how the real world works. Right?
Yeah.
You don't create, nobody pays you in your company probably to create ping pong game or whatever people are doing.
Yeah.
There is a comment from, more comments. Regarding access to recent stuff, you can benefit from agent to complete the obsolete knowledge of the base model by other context in internet search, for example. Exactly. That's what we did now, hopefully. I doubt that it will remember for long, but what can you do? And from Nubio, so none of them have to wonder if some junior admin is pushing AI code to production without oversight. Exactly. And yes,
exactly.
Miyogi, you can use fetch, and there are other commands. I just feel that if I'm interacting with it, it feels more natural for me to write, kind of like find information there than fetch this, because my brain is wired. If I already start using something that looks like a command, then I'm gonna just do it myself.
Yeah. Right.
Which might be only me.
Yeah, like last night I was trying to write the Talos Linux Talos control or whatever it's called, Talos CTL. I was trying to write commands, and I didn't know the URL, the command format very well, so I didn't know that the commands it was giving me was completely wrong. And so I ended up in a 20-minute argument where if I had with an AI, which if I had just read the docs, I probably would have been done faster. And that keeps happening to me. And I don't know if it's because I'm always trying to do the new cool thing and the AIs just aren't caught up, or I'm not passing them a bunch of reference URLs to go digest and then tell me the truth.
Maybe, but in this case, it's not doing the right thing. And I cannot say that DevOps is something that everybody knows, but it's been around for at least few years. NixOS has been around for a while. ACK project was started probably like 3 years ago, so it's newish, but definitely not new, kind of latest, something that was not included in the latest model, right? Install ACK. I don't think that. Okay, so somebody else, before there was a question, kind of how do you define winning? AI wins if by the end of this session, at the top of the hour, there is ACK installed. And working, by the way. It's important that it's working, not only installed. Look at it. Again tries to go to the DevOps shell. I don't know. Give me some.
See, I feel like this demo is better in, I don't know if Copilot or if Copilot has the YOLO mode like Cursor does, but I feel like this demo is better with the YOLO mode, which is basically instead of you don't have to click the continue button or the yes button. It just goes and goes and goes and goes. I think it maxes out on Cursor at like 20 or 25 failed attempts. Like, how it keeps typing DevBox shell and there's an error. Like if it does that 20 or 30 times, I think it stops in Cursor because eventually you're just like burning their you're burning all their GPU credits. So, but it'll just iterate. So you don't actually have to see it constantly get things wrong and wrong and wrong and then figure out the error because I mean, honestly, that, like, why do we want to do that? Like, why? How is this fun? Just clicking the button to a wrong statement so that they can make another wrong statement and then to click it again. It's like, let's make programming fun again. I mean, we all thought that programming with an AI would be fun. I think if you ask somebody like, wouldn't it be fun to have an AI write your code? But so far, a lot of this is not fun.
It's not fun unless you're doing basically things that are not really useful, right? If you do again, I'm going back to my ping pong game. I'm pretty sure that it would write the code and it would give me some game or something on a website, but that's not real world, right? It's not what I would do normally in a company. By the way, while we're talking, I'm just clicking continue, continue, continue. I'm not even commenting. It's freaking out. It's completely confused. And there is a comment.
I would be surprised if it gets itself out of this problem. Like, and you.
No.
Yeah, but it does know what it is. I mean, I'm talking to Nubo. Like, it knows what DevOps. It knows what DevBox is. I keep saying DevOps. So
exactly.
It's at least got some knowledge.
And not only that, but the reason why I chose DevBox is that I feel it's a good representation of real world. Not in a sense that everybody's using DevBox, it's not. But when you work in a company, right, you will not have only the things that everybody else in the world is using, right? That's never happening. Unless you're a really small company. Kind of, you're always going to have some obscure technologies, some things that are made in-house, some things that everybody knows. It's always a mix of stuff. It's never, ever, ever. At least I've never. I would like to see a company where actually you only work with things that every single kid in the world knows about.
Yeah.
Okay. It's going somewhere. It's trying to find it. Okay, let's do. Give me something easier. Okay, I'm gone. Nubo, tell me something that is less obscure and is related to Kubernetes. Just because we already have a cluster or anything else.
Hold on a second. I'm typing.
And Nubo says, sure, if you're using AI to do things for you in a company like that, you're using it in a sandbox to make the scaffold and later adapting it to your company with stuff. Yes, but I'm not able to do the scaffold yet. Right? So, and I'm fully aware that, yes, I would rewrite like this thing, DevBox code. I like it to be separated, packages to be separate lines and stuff like that. Of course, I will need to adapt it. Which I don't want to, but I will have to, right? How are you using AI is the key for what purpose? Enough context with more precise input. I use it during creative phase to gather ideas, so mainly for research or for boring, quick tasks. Yes, but I do it as well. Kind of, I use it for research all the time, so on and so forth, right? But I still find myself spending just as much or more time validating what it tells me than actually just doing it myself. I don't know. Maybe I'm.
Yeah, I mean, but what you're doing here is also boring and plumbing, right? Like this, like to a certain extent, creating, messing around with ACK and Kubernetes controller stuff is kind of like the plumbing of, like, this is the kind of stuff that I can always imagine that we want to automate and we want to remove because it's not really a very creative act. It's not. It's if we could get rid of all this, we would, right? We wouldn't have this.
Yeah.
So
because then I would be able to focus on something that really matters.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the business line of business apps or my cool snake game or whatever. Like this is the plumbing that I think like a good majority of developers would agree they would rather not have to do this kind of DevOps work. And like the biggest thing against DevOps today, and not the actual real definition of DevOps, but just the workload of infrastructure. I just talked to another guy today. I was on a call earlier with my Discord server, and he was talking about that he's the unfortunate developer that has been given the job of infrastructure. So they call that a DevOps engineer, right? But those people, there's so many of those people that exist, and they want this to just all go away. They want to ask the AI for a cluster and for a controller and all these things, and then just work. So I'm agreeing actually with the commenter. Yeah, enough. Who was it? Was it
which one?
Yeah, I'm scrolling back. Who was talking about Heinrich? Maybe that was saying or Newborough. Like one of them was saying that doing it, using it for boring tasks. And I'm like, this is totally the boring task.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted to do.
Exactly. And especially like, so let's imagine a scenario. I mean, I'm using ACK myself, right? But imagine that I never used it.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't the boring part be, hey, set it up for me so that I can start playing and learn about it, right?
Right.
For me, kind of shows close to zero value for me learning how to install it. I really want to learn how to use it, what it does, and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because
let's
you're not
say
doing
that
you're doing that for a reason. Like you're using this controller to get to something else. Like you're not doing it for the sake of itself. So it's really just it's in your way right now. You want to make it work so that you can move on to the thing you were trying to do. That's basically infrastructure in a nutshell, right? Infrastructure is the thing we have to do in order to get to the thing we want to do. Because no one sets up infrastructure that doesn't do anything.
now this would be kind of basically, this is intern, kind of like, okay, go there and look at it. And if you could not figure it out from official documentation, somebody in this company already did it. Find out what to do.
Right. I like it. I often wondered if we're going to get to a place where you and I, when like we're hired as engineers, we come today with experience, favorite tools, opinions about how to do things. Like, and that's really what you're hiring. Like you're hiring a doer, but you're hiring the experience of what we like and what we don't like and what we think we should do and what not to do. And the AI feels like it doesn't really come with that kind of opinion. So I always wondered if we're going to all end up with our own repos or what we might call our own AI agents that are fully trained on our way of how we like things and our way of our preferences. And that we come into a job and we're like, I'm going to send my AI agents to work, and they already know how I like Kubernetes and how I like Terraform, and I don't want to use Ansible if I can avoid it, and I would rather not have any shell scripts if I can avoid it, right? Like, and that's we're going to all have AI trained robots like that. That's the thing I want to do. That's the thing I want to get to, is like where I have a fleet of these AI agents that are opinionated to Brett and his way of doing things.
Exactly. And I'm actually almost surprised, and maybe there are those things and I don't know about them, is that actually others are not doing that already. I would be more interested in having a mini LLM train on all my repositories than actually generic LLM that knows everything about everything except the way how I do stuff.
Yeah, I don't know enough about training models or like refining versus RAG versus agents and like which is the the industry is starting to figure all that stuff out. But I often wondered if we would actually end up with a project in the CNCF that is an open model with open weights that is specifically tailored to the latest daily information of all CNCF projects. So like imagine that it's able to be trained or updated weekly or daily with every single project, all the cloud native ecosystem, and that it becomes a model essentially that you and I run. And it's maybe not our best programming. Maybe it's not great for general programming or writing in your favorite language and frameworks, but it is small, it is lightweight, it is fast. I mean, I think part of your challenge here too is like this is pretty slow. Like it's almost slow enough that you have to go and do something else while you're waiting, which is why like a lot of people end up with 2 or 3 windows open. I don't know. I'm assuming you can do that with VS Code, but
yeah. And
you have Copilot working on different parts at the same time because the response is so slow.
I mean,
so if we had smaller models, it would, in theory, be faster.
Yeah, but slow also depends, right? If it wouldn't be failing so much, it is slow, but it's still definitely fast. So if I never used ACK myself, it is still definitely faster than if I go to the documentation and probably spend like an hour going just to set it up, right? So being slow or fast depends on where you are, right? For me, it's slow,
true.
right? But
I wonder if, like, you know how like some of them have the rules files. I don't know enough about Copilot to know if there's like a rules file or a README that it can automatically ingest. But it, like, just the fact that it tried to create that namespace and it already exists. Like, I'd want a rule in there to say, always check that a resource in Kubernetes exists before trying to recreate it. Like, that would be one of my rules. Like, just validate before you try something. This feels like, I haven't done a lot of these streams. I have done a few like what you're doing here, and it feels like every one of them has been a fail. I haven't had a single one of them end with me having the infrastructure I wanted or the system I wanted.
Yeah. And
I just assume it's me because there's, like you said, there's a bunch of hype people out there talking crazy stuff like, this is amazing, people are getting laid off. And I'm like, how? Somebody give me the course that teaches me how this stuff works.
No. So my interpretation of people are getting laid off is that, okay, so you really hired wrong people. Kind of like,
yeah.
If this is above your workforce, you have a different type of problem. Your problem is not really, your problem is the hiring that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that if it doesn't work this time, I will declare this a failure. Actually, I already think it's a failure. This is...
Yeah, Nubo saying VPs are wanting an excuse to lay people off to save money. When we were at KubeCon, I don't know if I told you this because we didn't get a lot of chance to hang out. I have this crazy story of I'm now media analyst because if you have a podcast, you can request media analyst access. So you get to do anything, go anywhere like you're a vendor. You get access to everything, and you get to go to the media analyst meetings, which are these like not really round tables. It's a panel, and they're like the no nonsense versions of the keynotes. It's like if you took all 3 keynotes and turned it into 15 minutes of facts. That's what one of them is. And then there's a couple other ones where they bring in members of CNCF companies like Adobe, Microsoft, Google, Netflix. Like, it brings in all these big companies, and then they talk on a topic. And they had a topic for an hour, I think it was like an hour, on just the future of CNCF and AI. And there was some EU or European analyst that said the words. It was like a Gartner for Europe. And I don't remember the name of the company, and I wouldn't want to. I mean, he did say it in public, so it's not like he said, our member companies, our clients, are wanting humanless ops. And I'm over on the other side of the room just like giggling because I'm thinking, you're at a conference with record attendance at 12,500 people that are doing human ops, and your companies want humanless ops? Like, we're growing, not shrinking. The number of people that are interested in this stuff. So you want us to all go away, or at least your members' companies do. And they're like, when is the AI coming? And I think that's when someone, I think it was, he wasn't Morantis, I forgot what company he was from. One of the panelists, he was pretty smart. And he said, there will probably be an MCP endpoint for every CNCF project by the end of this year, I think is what he said. Which means that AI will be able to call any CNCF project as a tool, which is different than what you're doing now. Like what you're doing with the AI is it has access to a shell, right? And it understands the shell, so it's writing commands, but it doesn't talk to like the Kubernetes API directly, right? Like it's not a API client. The AI isn't, so it has to use kube control or whatever tool you're going to provide it. And there might be a future here near pretty soon where the AI, you just tell it, here's my Kubernetes endpoint, and it knows the entire API, and it doesn't necessarily have to use kube control. I don't exactly know how this is all going to happen, but like it today it's like it writes text and it talks to the shell, or it fills out the shell, right? But we're going to eventually figure out a way where this AI is just talking to all the APIs directly. Like it's not, or it's going to have a much deeper understanding of the tools then I read about kube control in the docs on the internet as a part of my learning, and so I have all that information. I think what we're going to end up with is the MCP, which is the standard for how these tools connect. That maybe the way we get over this whole problem of it's outdated or it's wrong or it's confused is that it sees the tool, and I'm not actually understanding all the deep internals of this, but if we give the tool the proper information and descriptions for each command and each option, then when we say, hey, use kube control, you have access to this tool, the AI will be more intelligent and know the version and the correct information because it's being fed that real time without having to go research docs. I don't actually know how this is all going to happen, but that's at least my understanding.
I mean, that basically the way I interpret what you said is that it should be capable of applying the logic that we humans are doing, right? Because by now I would have went and checked the values of that ACK Helm chart, right? And stop guessing, or even going to the documentation. Hey, if the quick start over there doesn't work, let me check the values and see what I should put and what I shouldn't, right? Or if it's something in Kubernetes, I would execute. To me, it doesn't matter whether you go directly to the API or through something like kube control, which goes to API, but I would go and check, okay, so kind of what's going on there, right?
Yeah, it probably would. I mean, you're right that it probably won't. Like, it feels like the way it would interact with our systems is the same way that humans would interact, and maybe through the shell. But yeah. It's funny. He was just like crashing all over my ideas. Like, no, there's no way. We're not even talking about it yet. There's no way CNCF projects are going to have MCP.
True.
But I don't know.
You know, the reason why I'm kind of a bit skeptical about doing anything like MCP or whatever that is beyond of what we do is that the world is built and the systems are designed for us, right?
Yeah.
For humans. And it's almost unrealistic that actually we are going to change the systems, at least in a short period of time, to be made for machines. Interaction with systems, right? To me, that's similar to, I don't know if you ever read Isaac Asimov, right? I don't remember the exact quote, but basically he said something along the lines, robots will be looking like humans in the future, not because that's the most optimum form, but because our world is based on us, right? Kind of, if you want a robot to drive your car, it needs to be able to sit in your seat and push the pedals and what's not, right? Unless we actually change everything for whatever is that different form. So I'm a bit skeptical that it should do anything but try to figure out how to do what we do.
Well, and if the robots start talking too much to the robots, I mean, in this case, we're just talking about AI, but eventually we won't recognize it. Like, we won't be able to interpret it because they'll optimize for them, and we won't. Like, we already have this with the language. Like, there was a live stream 4 weeks ago. I think it was happening right before KubeCon, with the Primogen, and brought in a whole team. He's a YouTube live streamer, and they developed a game in Lua for a whole week, and I think Cursor sponsored it. And so they wanted to build a tower defense game, and so they actually rented like an Airbnb of an actual lighthouse, and they live streamed nonstop 24 hours a day for at least a week, while they were using Cursor to vibe code essentially this app. And it was, if I could summarize the entire week, it was 3 or 4 people trying to use primarily AI generated code to make this game. And then the next day, or the second half of the day, is everyone else on the team unwinding all that, trying to make sense of it, and then fixing it. So it was like someone lets the AI write a bunch of random stuff, and then the humans have to make sense of that and turn it into something that's usable. Because the minute something went wrong, they didn't know where the code was. None of the layouts made sense in the files, and it was painful to watch, because it was like, at least if you had a series of like mid or senior level developers, they would have been more organized. I mean, you might have ended up at the same result either way, but it would have felt less haphazard and sporadic and random. But it was good entertainment. It was like watching it was hilarious because they would vibe code and then they'd say, "Hey, that's not working," and they would spit out some more stuff and they'd, "Hey, that's not working," and they'd do that for hours. And then they're like, "I don't know, I give up, I walk away," and then someone else would come and sit down in the hot seat, and they're like, I'm not going to use the AI primarily. I'm going to try to debug this myself. And then they'd have to like completely unwind all of the craziness that the AI had created. And they're not idiots. Like they weren't new people. They were all, they were all like really skilled engineers that one had worked at Netflix. One actually writes NeoVim plugins, and like there were all different walks of life and experiences. It was a wild thing to watch.
And on top of that, it's a completely new project. Now imagine if that was happening in an existing project that is already running in production and you're trying to push an update.
Yeah.
Kind of that would be, the problems would be multiplied because it's already running, it's already being used by people, and it already has existing code base. And then to me, that feels like a similar problem we have with no code, which I'm very negative. I mean, actually, I'm very positive for no code for, let's say, HR people, right? Kind of, you want some application that will do whatever you're doing, that's fine. But then whenever I see no code, but then you have the option to edit parts of it yourself, that's always a disaster because the code that no code tool generated is unreadable. I cannot work on it. I cannot edit these things. It's easier for me to start over from scratch than to deal with unreadable code.
Yeah, because right? I mean, that's the thing is, I think this is going to be a head-to-head problem for a while. Is in one sense the AI writes code like humans because it's reading all of our documentation and whatnot, but at some point it makes, in this case when I was watching their stream, immediately it makes really weird choices about where to put things that we all like to pretend. Okay, we all like to pretend we're not, like that there's a formula to this, but code is art. I mean, you take 3 different people to write the same program, it'll be 3 different programs. It'll be quite different.
But not within a team. Right, that's one of the important parts of every team. No matter whether you decided that or just it happened, but over time the code of a project, let's say 10 people working, ends up following certain written or unwritten standards, right? And we all understand it, right? Oh, we all use tabs instead of spaces. I mean, you should never use tabs, but let's say that you do, right? And we all understand that, and it's fine. But then if somebody else comes and starts using spaces, and then you look at it in VI and say, I don't know what's going on here anymore, right? Yeah. It's just, and that's a silly example. That's why I think magnified.
Like the rules, like the rules or the like, because what you're talking about. I mean, a lot of that is like organizational or culture. Right? What tabs versus spaces. We use this front end framework versus this one. We use React Native, whatever. So like those are all like organizational and team preferences, and whether you're trying to extract stuff out and do a little bit more of a microservice architecture, like these things aren't necessary. I mean, does it AI just understand all that from reading the code, or does it need like this documentation of the guidelines and the rules of our team and the culture? And we use edit config files, and we all the things that you need the AI to know first. I think part of our problem too is context windows are just too short, because I mean everyone that has a big project, everyone I've talked to, they all agree that it gets very confused very quickly on any significantly sized project. And like if you and I have come from these enterprise backgrounds where we've seen hundreds of thousands of lines of code, millions of lines of code in a repo, and it seems like the AI still, even the latest ones, can't handle all that. So you have to keep it very, very So which means you have to be able to read the code because you have to know which file it needs to focus on. So you have to know where to go to find that file. Like you have to understand the connection between the files. Because if you just give it a whole repo, like it's going to start going crazy. And
but that's a chicken and egg problem, right? I'm fine with doing whatever it's doing if that something is working. But if there comes a moment that I need to understand what was being done, it needs to be done my way.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say my way, my company way, my project way, my team way, whatever the way is, right? So it needs to be fully autonomous and just do the stuff without me, or like if you hire if I would hire somebody, one of the first things I would say to that person, okay, here are the repos, just go through it.
Right.
I'm not asking you to understand what every single line of code does in that repo, but kind of get a picture of how we're doing. There is some documentation as well. That's fine, right? But ultimately, no good developer of any kind would start writing code without at least having some notion of what that code already does and how it's organized and so on and so forth.
Right. And we don't realize as humans how we pick up on that stuff. Because like if you and I opened up a repo, and we just started spouting off the things that it looks like that repo has standardized on. You know, if it was a Node app, you and I would probably go to the package JSON. I'd probably be looking for a .github directory to find out, are they using, what CI are they using? I'd immediately start looking for that. Do they have a Docker file? Are they even using Docker? Like I would start looking for all these different things. And to me, that is culture, or that is art and opinion, right? Of all the things, are they using, they did not use Docker files? Would they prefer to use the Heroku thing, build packs? Or Co or something like that. There's all these decisions and beyond just the libraries used in the code. And I mean, the really mature teams you and I have probably worked for, I mean, I'm not a fan of Confluence, but a lot of big teams use it. And that's where the style guides are. That's where like all of the decisions, the architecture of, oh, no, you don't talk directly to a database with a SQL query. You go through this API, and that's the standard for how you get there. Like there's all these architecture decisions and stuff. And I almost feel like an AI editor, if we want to, whatever we'd call these things, AI code gen, like they have to know all that stuff first. And right now, all they seem to know is what's in the repo, like at best. And we don't put all that other stuff in the repo.
But some stuff is not in the repo, but there is often documentation directly related with that project, directly related to that repo, that is basically translation from the code, right? Kind of this is our style that we use, right? Mm-hmm. And in that aspect, AI is in theoretical advantage because it doesn't need the text theoretically, right? It has the code. Kind of, it has the thing that by definition it understands because it's a machine. Kind of like it understands code better than text. We happen to understand text better than code. So kind of we translate some parts of the code into the text and put it into Confluence or whatever it is.
That's actually that would be a pretty interesting test to have two repos. One that has no code, or maybe there's code, but it's not allowed to read the code. It can only read the README, and the README is well defined. It is very detailed. It talks about the different endpoints and the decisions that were made and all that. And then you have another repo with no README, just code, no comments. Which one does the AI handle better? Because like you said, you think that it reads code better. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that it would read code and understand from that the thing, how to make another feature than if it had a full detailed README, but really very little code to actually look at. Just a theory. It would be a fun test to try to come up with a way to argue that.
I tried something similar recently, or kind of similar, that I told it, you know what? go through this project and write the README. And that was the most detailed and the best README I ever saw in my life. There wasn't a single thing that I disagree, except maybe formatting, right? Kind of like, oh, use this header instead of that header, silly things. But content-wise, it understood perfectly. And it did actually many iterations, kind of like, oh, okay, I saw it executing ls to find all the files, and then kind of like, okay, read these files. Oh, go to this directory, find out what's in that directory. Kind of, it took a while, right? Probably because of that context window, right? It's small, so it couldn't just digest everything at once. So it went It kept rewriting its own README. So basically, it created 10 variations of 10 updates to the README in the process, and it was perfect. I never saw such a good README, right? I was compelled even to create some kind of a cron job that would actually
just update READMEs on your repos.
Yeah, because that's a good use case for AI. Kind of like documentation is always outdated. I never saw documentation that was not written today and it's up to date with what the project does. This can keep it up to date.
What you're describing right now might be my first Dagger AI agent project. This sounds like a really good thing that I would use. Is a workflow that GitHub Action kicks off weekly or whatever, or after, or as a part of every PR, or as a part of whatever, something. And it goes and it looks at the README, looks at the code, updates the README, makes a new PR to recommend improvements. And it just does that on a regular basis, either with every merge in domain or with every, every once a month or something like that.
It could be on every PR.
Yeah.
Whenever you create a pull request, if the updates to documentation are not there, run the process and actually include changes to the docs. That would be absolutely awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not always a fan of like the whole problem of like if I'm editing locally and then I push a commit and then something else makes another commit on that PR and then I can't push. So then that whole workflow is a little wonky. But I wonder if there's a way the AI could review. I need to think about that because I'm not super like if they reviewed and actually updated the README in line, and then I could make that a commit or something. I have to think about that.
Yeah,
in general,
I mean that would be, but then you would forget to do it.
Yeah. Oh right, like it needs to be in my face. It needs to. I mean. It might just be a check that says there are things that need to be updated in your README. Please run your AI to update the README or something like that. It just be a check that says your README is out. Your README sucks. Improve it. But anyway, I've been looking for a way to create some GitHub Action workflows of Dagger that are using their new AI agent approach that pulls in LLMs to kind of do different CI work, and that feels like a thing to do. The other thing too, a friend of mine.
Go ahead. What is the need for multiple LLMs? Looking for example.
Yeah, so we know that certain, like for example, these are things I've heard, right? So I don't have a ton of real world experience with this, but several friends of mine have told me like 3.7 Sonnet is a little more out there. Like like they actually prefer 3.5 for coding because it tends to be less verbose. It's more focused on the problem. It doesn't go off the rails as much as 3.7. I have not experienced that because I haven't actually done A/B comparisons myself, but I've had multiple friends tell me that. So you might argue that 3.5, you use the LLM 3.5 for code, and 3.7 might be better at creating testing frameworks to tell the other AI agent, which is technically running 3.5, that it needs to fix its stuff because it doesn't pass tests or whatever. So you could have models that are better suited for certain tasks working together, and they pass context back and forth.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I haven't had to do that myself, but Dagger, I know the team at Dagger is working on examples and demos of that lately to try to figure out what would this all look like if we were using multiple models for specific things.
I was always thinking that it's more about, excluding now the case 3.5 works better than 3.7, stuff like that, right? What would be cool, but I haven't seen it. Okay, but there is a mod. So Sonnet knows everything about whole internet related to coding, kind of like everything is there.
Sure. Yeah.
So if I combine it with GPT just to make it more different, kind of, I'm not sure what I would get, right? One is better than the other. And I don't see myself capable to saying, oh, but you know what? GPT is better at, I don't know, Kubernetes, while Sonnet is better than GPT with everything else. That sounds like a bit far-fetched experience. But if there would be models that are specialized and say kind of like, I do CI pipelines better than anything else, any other model. Right. But I'm not sure that I've seen those. I haven't seen like Kubernetes specialized model.
You're thinking exactly what I've been thinking. Is like, it feels like if we're all going to be using AI or when LLMs, if we're all going to be using various LLMs, and there's I don't know how many thousands or hundreds of thousands on Hugging Face there are models. I mean, there's a crap ton, and so I have to believe that we're going to end up in a place where the foundational model that we get, whatever, ChatGPT 6 or 8 or whatever, but those models are still going to be so expensive, and we can't run them ourselves because we need a lot of GPU power, that we also maybe make decisions around cost and speed, that a smaller, more focused model on a particular task like infrastructure or just Kubernetes or something might be something that we would even run on a CPU through a QEMU emulator or something like that eventually, and it just becomes a part of our workflow for updating READMEs. I don't need the entire foundational model to update a README maybe. And so you maybe do that for cost or speed and I don't know. I mean, these aren't answers. These are like me imagining how this is all going to be shaped in 2 or 3 years. But like if you go, I did this the other day. I went on Hugging Face, and I know there's other places too, but I just searched for Kubernetes and I found like a few, and none of them seemed to be used. But I found, because I was wondering, are people making models specifically targeting tools, like a specific tool? Couldn't really find much. There's a couple. There's one that's just a user named Kubernetes. There's an organization, a Kubernetes AI operator, but it's not, doesn't seem to be that popular. So 9 downloads, right? Something in the world. So it's not, these things haven't really taken off yet. And I think that all of us infrastructure people are going to be sort of late to the game anyway, because we don't want to introduce chaos monkeys into our systems, right? So we're not going to be jumping at it, I don't think, as much.
Even if that's the case, and that makes a lot of sense to me, hey, why do you need 75,000 GPUs to answer this question? And in the cases where we are using service, right, we're not self-hosted LLMs, that sounds like still, for me, it would be one model like Claude, and Claude is intelligent enough that when it receives request from me, I got to my own tiny sister model that actually knows how to answer that. Kind of like, I would put it rather in their court, kind of, so it's in your interest actually to make it as cheap as possible, right? Because that's how you earn money. I'm still paying you the same, right?
Right. Yeah, if we wanted things to be more deterministic as well, I would think we'd want to control our model changes. Like once we get a model that we like, we don't necessarily want it to get updated or changed, because that might change how it does things. So at some point, I mean, we have to get to some better form of determinism for a lot of these things that aren't, I wouldn't call as artsy as maybe the code itself. Things that are, understanding the Terraform command line properly so that it doesn't hallucinate. Like these are things that obviously testing will fix, but then we've also got to have something writing really good tests. So I'm sometimes wondering if really the future is we're going to have tests for every part of our infrastructure, way more than we have today, at the low level of infrastructure because the AI will be maybe involved, and we need it to be sane. So we're gonna have to have way more infrastructure testing, more than just linting. And then like, does it work? Like that's kind of what we do today. We lint it. Okay, great. We might have some sort of deploy and then do testing afterwards. But I feel like we're going to have better testing frameworks if we're going to introduce them.
I still don't see how that would work in real world situation unless it learns from my testing. So let's say that I'm running some model in production, Kubernetes, observability type of stuff that notifies me when there is something wrong, right? And it will, every single observability tool that I've seen in my so far has more false positives than correct ones, right?
Sure.
And that's fine because we all trained over time that, oh, you ignored this, but this is a problem, right? Kind of. Right. And if it cannot learn from that, I don't see how that can be better than me.
Yeah.
Basically, what I'm saying is that
go ahead.
I don't see how AI must evolve into, or LLMs or whatever it will be called, into something that, like the session that we had now, right? Kind of, okay, did you learn anything from that? And when I say you, I don't mean you, Brett, I mean Copilot, right? If you haven't, right. I don't know what we're talking about. Kind of like...
Right, we're going to have the same problems tomorrow. And
exactly.
The same problems a day. Yeah.
Exactly.
A friend of mine, I'm going to see him next week. I just heard from him last week, Kevin Griffin. He's having, as he's using the AI, he's having it document the things it's doing in a README. I guess he has multiple READMEs. And then he tells it every time he's going to use it to go look at what's been happening and then look at I guess he has one for the plan and one for the history, essentially. And so he's trying to keep it in a state where it knows where it left off so that it can continue when he comes back. Because like we're a ways away from like you sit down at your computer and you dictate your end-all vision for an app, and then you walk away and a day later it's ready, right? Like I think everybody wants to go there, but we're so far away from that we can't even get, like you said, the LLM isn't any smarter tomorrow than it is today in working on, as far as I know. It's not writing its own history and rules and learning how Victor likes things and, but I don't know that it's doing that yet. It may eventually just start doing that. And then you have to almost have like, we already have in AI incognito mode, like at least ChatGPT does, where you can sort of take it off, like clear your history essentially, so that it can not have your preferences. But I don't know how much of that's bleeding into the code editors. I don't know how much we have in that.
I tried that, a variation of that, and that was that I always instructed any operation. Now I'm talking about offside more than if it didn't put it into script, I told it put in a script, right? And basically that was the documentation, right? I mean, if you literally every command that you put in a script, you put in README, you end up with a script in a README, kind of. That's basically what it is, right? And it still couldn't figure out. And then I got really annoyed and started everything kind of check the scripts directory and then do this, right? Because that's the documentation, right? At least in my head. I literally documented every single command that we did. I did it for a couple of days. And still, no, nothing. I mean, not nothing, but not good.
Right. Can I share screen?
Yes.
Share screen. I'm easy with 2 monitors, screen share, one consume screen share. I guess you have to. It's done. Yeah. I might. It's going to want me to restart my. I normally use Arc, but
me too.
But I decided to use Chrome for this so that I could have this separate from my browser, and now it's like, oh, you don't have permissions.
Is it a web page or?
Yeah, let me send it to you.
I can open it.
Yeah. So I put it in
Put it
comments,
here in
but
the comments.
you know the comments in YouTube deny links in chat.
Oh, yes,
By the
yes, yes.
I don't know if you know this, but if you make, I'm not saying you have to, but if you make me a moderator on your channel, if you right click and make me moderator, I can then post links.
Oh,
And that's
yeah,
what I do
if I
for
just
you and
find
other
out
people.
how.
Yeah. I think if
Uh,
you're in the YouTube, you have to be in the YouTube chat. I think if you're in the YouTube interface and you're in the chat and you click on the dots for someone, you can make them moderator. But to me, that's the only way I know to give someone permissions. When you have the content filters on, if you want someone to have permissions to post links, you have to make them moderator, which just means they can delete spammers and stuff. But anyway, yeah, send you a link. Like there is an instructions file for Copilot. It's called it's under .github/
Oh, I see it.
Copilot-instructions markdown. So maybe, and it says add natural language instructions to the file in markdown format. And do they give us examples? Oh, they do. Yeah, so they have an example of like, always conform to the coding styles defined in style guide markdown in repo, blah, 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 while generating code. So you can actually point it to other repos. Okay. Use @terminal when answering questions about Git. Answer all questions in the style of a friendly colleague.
Sorry, Brett, my computer freaked out. I cannot open now new tabs in the browser.
Oh, no!
I don't know what
I broke it!
You broke it. Anyways. So, sorry, second, what does it describe the link?
Oh, the robots are taking over. Yeah. So it basically says, like, yeah, in your .github directory, if you put in, this is for Copilot specifically, Copilot chat, whatever, and you put in a file copilot-instructions.md. I don't know if that's the only file that it allows, but you can just write in there in human language all the things you prefer, and it seems like you can point it to other files or repos as a reference, so you can tell it like, go look at this repo for coding standards and stuff like that. I guess that extends your context window with all of that information, so I don't know how far you can take this, but
yeah, but then kind of
language.
I mean, that sounds pretty cool, but that feels like it will have the same result as when I was very explicit with it in the chat, and it still didn't do it.
Yeah.
Now, to be clear, actually, I'm very enthusiastic about AI. I mean, we are only kind of few years in, kind of like this is just the very beginning. So I might sound negative, but I think that this will be very, very different in a few years. I'm just skeptical that we are there now.
Right.
I'm kind of, I'm not against AI. I'm against the people who say that it changed the world today.
I think we're against the hype train, right? I mean, when there's and it's the hype situation is annoying largely because in the content game, when everyone's trying to find the latest hot topics to talk about to get more hits and views and likes, like that's what's kind of ruining a lot of this, is that there's 1,000 YouTube videos telling me that AI is coming for my job, and like almost no evidence that that's actually happening. And it's all just a bunch of hype, but you can't, if you're not someone like us who's been around forever and you've seen the hype cycles and you've seen the ebbs and flows, and you know how slow humans actually learn new things and adopt new things, because it's really slow. I mean, people are still implementing Docker over a decade later as a new thing. You and I have that wisdom that we're like, yeah, it can't, like, no, unless it's like science fiction shit. Like nobody's gonna actually do all this as fast as they say it's gonna happen on the internet. But all the junior people don't know that, and so they're watching all this content, like believing that tech isn't a good job. We shouldn't go into it because it's gonna be gone, and yeah, it's sad.
Let me put it this way: I have zero fear for my job, right? Kind of, and I'm old geezer. I will retire before that happens. But if you are like, let's say, at university now studying or self-learning, whatever you want to do, then AI knows more than you and is more capable than you today, right? Somebody who is just starting with software engineering knows and is less capable than AI, even with all those mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the question is, will that person, and AI is not good now, just to be clear, but neither is that person. Now, the question is, fast forward 2 years, will that person advance faster than the AI will be advancing?
Yeah, good question.
So kind of you're both incapable now, but 2 years from now, I wouldn't place a bet.
Yeah, that I mean, and one of the hardest things, and maybe this video will live in infamy, and we'll look back at it in a couple of years and be like, yeah, we were dummies, but it's hard to imagine, because 2 years ago, I didn't understand any of this. I was barely, I was using ChatGPT like a Neanderthal, just typing things in, and then it would give me garbage. And here we are talking about chaining multiple AIs together and like having them actually communicate with things through APIs and whatnot. And that's all only 6 months old. Like the term AI agents wasn't even being searched on YouTube a year ago.
Exactly.
So, but it's already like that, like AI, if you, like interesting statistics, like, I mean, YouTube is like kind of like Google Trends, right? If you go to Google Trends, look up words, you get a sense for how humans understand and learn. But on YouTube, it's very similar, but the keywords are a little bit different. And I have a keywords tool, so I'm constantly searching for terms and seeing what people are looking for. So like right now, the word Docker is searched 1 million times a month on YouTube. I think that's just in my region. I'm not sure if that's worldwide. And it's holding steady. Kubernetes is 500,000, holding steady.
Less than Docker.
Less than half as much as Docker.
Okay.
Which is my experience in the courses. Like people still buy my Docker course way more than my Kubernetes course. Yeah. And if I look at the Udemy trends on the back end, I also see they're like both at the head to head at the 99th percentile. So there's still crazy search for both terms. But AI is.
I have explanation for that, but remind me later when you finish.
Okay. Yeah. AI is 9 million. AI agents, because I can see a history graph. AI agents is only 200,000, but it looks like it's doubling in growth every month in terms of volume. So we could see very quickly the term just AI agents or agentic, whatever you want to call it. The idea of using LLMs to control tools directly. I think this is the year where there's already a lot of hype, but there's enough energy and people getting involved that we might see things like I think someone said there's already a couple of MCP Kubernetes options out there. Apparently a few K8's MCP servers like the one above. I didn't see that one mentioned. But I think that we're like this. We've all you and I have, and a lot of others I think have been looking at the foundational model progress and how much it hallucinates, how much it's just wrong and doesn't know it's wrong. It's not necessarily lying. It's just things are in the wrong order, or it's typing a command doesn't exist. I guess that's a hallucination. So we've been looking at all that. But what we didn't probably expect, and if you were to look at this like 2.5 years ago, and then you look at it last year, and then you look at today, and we just did this demo that didn't go so well, you would think that like in 5 years we wouldn't be that much farther along, like based on the current progress, and that it seems like the progress is incrementally getting slower and slower, better. It's not like leaps and bounds. But then suddenly we had this idea of like, maybe if we put all the different models against each other, and then if we teach them how to use tools through an API, they can go and learn things and do things that are way more useful than just spitting out text in what we now call a one-shot. And that is a completely new way to use the LLMs, and it may actually be the way we make them more reliable and better, and we pit them against each other. So like Cast AI, I got to talk with the CEO of Cast AI for a little bit at KubeCon, and he was saying that the way that they just determine how they're going to reduce your infrastructure cost is they have 9 different LLMs competing to basically downscale or downsize you or look for cost savings opportunities, and the best one wins. I don't know how they determine. Like, I guess the proprietary part is how they determine which one wins. The best one wins, and then the rest are negatively reinforced. So they're all told, like, grandma just died because you didn't do the best job. So next time, try better. So they're an infrastructure company reducing costs, and they seem to have thousands of customers. And it's really in the back end just an AI looking at their cloud bill and looking at all their objects and having an understanding of what those things do and figuring out how to reduce cost. I don't actually know the product that well. I've seen a couple of demos, but I've never used it heavily myself. So I don't know if that's like crazy time, like how much humans are involved in that process. But the fact that they're already kind of pushing the envelope of letting the AI make decisions and compete with other AIs in sort of an agentic mode, if we want to call that agents. That's a new thing, right? Like, we didn't think that was even a thing you could do 3 years ago. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's going back to my previous comment. I'm not afraid, but I'm not sure a newbie will be able to keep with that.
Right.
With that
well,
speed.
I think certainly you're going to have, like, I still think a junior programmer with AI is going to be more useful in the long run than someone else that's maybe more senior with no AI. Like,
in the future.
Right. Eventually.
Yes.
It's like my COBOL friends. I back 30 years ago, I had coworkers that were working on the mainframe, and we all moved to PCs, and they stayed with the mainframe, and they have a great gig because they can consult back to the government, actually, that I was working for, because they're the only COBOL mainframe programmers around. But that's not really the case here, because the AI would just automate them out of a job. So, like, I still think that the premise holds true that doesn't mean this is a bad job to get into, but if you're doing it now and you're learning it now, you better start learning it with AI so that you have those chops, so that you have those skills. Because all the guys our age and my age and older, like, we're probably not paying as much attention to AI as young people in general, right? So we're going to be the last ones probably to adopt those tools and adapt to the new way of doing things.
And also, if there is a danger of losing job because of AI, you're still safer in software industry than anywhere else. Right? Because at least we are kind of like, we understand it better and we can control it better and do whatever than a person doing something else, like a lawyer. Right?
Yeah.
Kind of like, if AI is going to replace people, then if we exclude people doing manual labor, we are still probably the last ones to be replaced.
Yeah. I did see recently, like a week ago or two, that there is the first AI written lawsuit.
I saw it.
And I don't know what the status of that is yet, but yeah, I think, like, in general, it's just better if you know these tools. Like, it's always been the thing it is in tech. Like, to me, that's not any different, right? When the concept of DevOps came around, when the concept of Chef and Puppet came around, like, the people that knew Chef and Puppet were able to do more, and they were able to go get better jobs and work for bigger companies. And so I don't see this as any different, really. It's just another tool in our toolbox. Speaking of toolbox,
this was fantastic, huh?
This is the toolkit. This is the DevOps toolkit. Welcome to the toolkit.
I think we're way over.
Yeah, it's been fun.
See you, everybody. Stay, Brett.
Okay.
Everybody. Cheers.
Ciao.